my PowerPoint, which has all the stuff in it. And if I could just get confirmation that folks can see my screen. Thumbs up or excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, well, we are welcome to the December 5th, 2023 meeting of the Pacific Island Areas NRCS State Technical Advisory Committee meeting. I had sent out the agenda to folks earlier, but just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to be going over today. We are very lucky to have Representative Tokuda on with us today to offer some insight on some of the listening sessions that she has hosted across the state, and also to hear mostly from you. And so please, this is not the time to be wallflowers and be shy. You know, we don't get to have representatives join us that often, so this is a great opportunity. And then we also have some other items we'll go through: partnership opportunities, becoming a technical service provider, some easement subcommittee updates from Farm Service Agency, and then FY23 programs overview and FY24 program rollout. So at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to JB Martin, Director for NRCS in the Pacific Island areas, for his opening remarks. JB?
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. I wish I would have known you was going to put that picture up, but thank you anyway, okay? I just want to say welcome to everybody and taking the time out to visit with us today. I'm going to try to keep my comments short due to the fact that we have Congresswoman Tokuda on the line. We just want to get geared up for going into the calendar year 24 due to the fact that we have some challenges amongst us in terms of obligation and implementation of our Farm Bill and RA dollars. And I think for our NRCS staff that is on board during this call, we had an NLT in Minneapolis a few weeks ago, and Kori, our partnerships person, and 2 other staff attended that meeting. And RCPP, Regional Conservation Planning Partnership Effort, was a big item. Matter of fact, the primary item on the docket. And we're looking for new and innovative ways to be creative to expand our partnerships, not only with RCPP, but across the board. Just this week alone, we've met Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, and I will be meeting with some others later in the week to try to expand our partnerships to help us complete a lot of this work. Our task is to identify as many new participants as possible. We're going to try to do any and everything we can possible to accomplish that, as well as continuing to provide our emergency watershed protection program with the Maui fire recovery, expanding the technical aspect, getting our employees trained, but the main significant portion for us for the remainder of the calendar year this year and going into 24 is program implementation. That's not an easy task. We're looking forward to the opportunities that are bestowed upon us to get that accomplished. One thing that I would mention that we've talked about, that I've mentioned to some of the staff, we want to take a closer look at looking at a subcommittee. Hopefully, I don't know if Nick is going to discuss this in any detail today, but we want to bring it up. STAC subcommittee on indigenous practices for the state of Hawaii. We want to take a strong look at that and see how we can enhance some of the opportunities through our programs and partnerships associated with that. And also the technical service providers that Jason will be mentioning. And once again, to round it up, looking for more significant partnership opportunities. So during the course of the meeting, I want you all to be thinking in terms of those particular situations as far as how can we be more, we as NRCS be more visible, proactive in our approach to address the concerns that we have throughout the state in terms of program implementation and reaching new individuals, but also always feel free to voice your opinion or concerns as it relates to natural resources that we protect through PIA. So I'll stop there, entertain questions later, but I just wanted to have an opportunity to turn the Teams meeting over to Ms. Congresswoman Jill Tokuda. I always have to tell the same story as I always have when I first met her during my HEAL workshops with NACD, National Association of Conservation District. She came out with no shoes on, and I said, this lady right here is going to be one that's going to fight and serve the state of Hawaii. And so I greatly appreciate her time, her patience, and the commitment that she's has bestowed upon the state of Hawaii in conservation and agriculture. So, Congresswoman Tokuda, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, JB. Actually, I'm sitting in my office now and I don't have my shoes on still. So nothing much has changed in the last year. It's been almost a year now since we got here. Just appreciate the chance to be able to come and talk story with all of you. I wish it were in person. Maybe one day soon we'll be able to actually do that. But really means a lot to even, first of all, can I just say, have this committee. It's really hard sometimes to be able to understand what's going on the front lines. How can we be most supportive? How can we work together when it comes to supporting agriculture and conservation efforts? And so to have the stack for me is truly an asset. I will say this as both as just the representative for Congressional District 2, but also as a member of the House Agriculture Committee during this Farm Bill year. I really do view this as a resource, as an asset. So to everyone I can't see everyone's names and faces, obviously, but appreciate your participation. And JB, my hope is really that you continue to have this committee. I hope it grows even bigger, just opportunities for us to engage like this. And I can tell you that for myself, would like to engage even more to the extent possible on your folks' agenda so that I am able to, when I'm here in Congress, accurately represent the views and the perspectives of all of you on the front line. So mahalo for what you do every day. I think one of the things they wanted me to talk about was some of the listening sessions that we did across the state. One of the things I've mentioned even to Secretary Vilsack, as well as the chair of our Ag Committee, G.T. Thompson, is that these listening sessions were important for me to have. But what really impressed me too, and I think a lot of people, was that we had representation from NRCS, from R&D, from FSA, all present at those meetings in many cases on every island, listening, not there to talk, but really to listen. And then immediately, I saw JB a few times jump off and help people one-on-one. It's like, hey, you've got this particular concern, let's talk about this. And so for me, it was a valuable opportunity for us to listen to the concerns of our ranchers, farmers, producers, but also, allow them to connect up with them, the federal agencies that are really there to help them. And so I'll be really brief because I would rather also just hear from you if that's possible and if that's allowable in the time frame of this conversation. But we heard a lot of different things when we did our tour. And like I said, we went to every single island, multiple points on each island. Kona, Hilo, we went to Waianae, we went to, the windward side. We went everywhere, Molokai, Lanai, to really reach out to folks and to listen to them about Farm Bill priorities. As you can imagine, the real pressure points and pain points for so many of them was just the cost of doing business. Transportation hit the bucket really high as, being a pain point for many people. Input costs, whether it's fertilizer and feed, those types of things, that came up really, really big. Discussions about infrastructure. All of these definitely came before the tragic fires on Maui. I think had we gone after, it would have been a very different kind of discussion, more about fire mitigation and potential agroforestry techniques that could have been used to save a lot of the lands or to actually prevent fires in other areas. But when we went, I would just say that, water infrastructure was a big discussion point. How can we help to also combat a lot of biosecurity threats, pests, disease right now, and not just, being on the defensive, but there was a lot of discussion about how we can really be on the offensive, given that once it takes root in Hawaii, it's very, very hard to turn the corner and, get ahead of some of these things, and makes it very, very difficult for our food producers. So those things, discussions came up. There was a lot of desire for us, as there always has been, to look at how we can reduce our food insecurity in Hawaii. But as we know, as you folks know as well, it's one thing to say we want to grow more local food and consume more local food, but the pressure truly is, and the responsibility so far has fallen completely on the shoulders of our growers and our food producers, which is unacceptable. We need to help them. And so, to that point about looking at food insecurity as a true issue that, leaves us vulnerable in Hawaii, and quite frankly, given our defense posture, vulnerable throughout the country. We talked about different things and strategies supporting indigenous and traditional, cultivation practices and different types of crops. We looked at how can we, assist with, as I mentioned earlier, transportation cost reimbursement programs. So that is one of the top priorities that we have. How can we assist with, different research to really try to combat some of the invasive species and pests? How can we look at helping to support infrastructure, water infrastructure, all of these different types of things. So the listening sessions were very robust. I can tell you that for every community we went to, there were similar challenges, some that will be able to be addressed in the Farm Bill. Others would be a little bit more difficult. Struggles I think you have all heard of in terms of even, okay, so, you have a farm, but can you get farm workers? Can you get labor? Labor is a huge issue in every sector of our economy right now. But how can you get labor? How can you help make it possible for them to live close to where, they will work? That is a big issue that has really kept a lot of potential workers from actually being able to do their job. So housing, workforce housing came up often. Labor came up, and access to labor, kind of that continuity. Hawaii farmers, food producers across the country, when you look at the average age, it is on the more mature end of the spectrum. And so really, how are we going to create the right supports and infrastructure and system that will allow us to encourage others to come into farming, and also, quite frankly, give a lot of parents the comfort of passing it on to the next generation. I was talking to a Farm Bureau representative from from Oregon yesterday, and she was telling me that is a big struggle that so many have. They want to leave it for their kids, but they don't know if that's the kind of life they want their child to actually have. They know the struggle, and they want to make sure that when they do pass it on generationally, that it will be with the ability for them to leave a good life, and to be able to not struggle as much as they have. And so there was a lot of honest and open discussions about that too, as we went throughout the islands, talking to folks about their challenges and their hopes for agriculture in Hawaii in the next 5 years. As you know, right now, the Farm Bill has been given a clean extension into the next fiscal year. So unlike a few other parts of government that we need to figure out before January 19th and February 2nd, the Farm Bill has until September 30th of 2024. So we have a little bit more time on our side. But I can assure you that we are still continuing to negotiate in good faith and very robustly. For myself, it is about actually protecting a lot of conservation funding and money that we've got out there right now, much of it that came through a lot of the infrastructure bills that were passed last year, to make sure that we protect that as being used as an offset to fund the Farm Bill. And so that's actually the big kind of line. I don't want to say there's lines in the sand just yet, but some of the things that we're looking at is making sure that offsets don't actually hurt a lot of the good work in progress we've made, especially in the conservation space. And I have told anyone who will listen that especially when it comes to Hawaii and the Pacific region, we actually need more support. Every region, quite frankly, needs more support when it comes to our capacity. You all know that the work that NRCS does is so critical, FSA, RD. We need more individuals, supports that will be on the ground helping our farmers, ranchers, and producers do what they need to do. And so for me, it is also about making sure that we support our entities with the capacity that they need, not just maintain, definitely prevent against cuts, but I actually want to see how we can increase the capacity of our agencies to be able to do the good work that they've been doing and expand out even more. And so that is something that I've also been really pushing forward with, and hope that we'll be able to get that as part of our appropriations and the Farm Bill. So, with that, I probably talked way too much for all of you at this particular point. But just like I said, I really appreciate the chance to be able to talk story with you, open to any questions or comments you have, or can always talk later as well. But like I said, this entity, the STAC, thank you for participating. I know you guys have a million meetings and Zooms that you probably have to do all the time, but I do truly value this as a resource. You know, I know at least one member of my team is always on participating as well. And so if I cannot be on, please know that it does get back to me. And this group is really, I think, a huge value and asset to agriculture conservation in Hawaii. So mahalo for all that you folks do. Turning it back to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Jill. I appreciate everything you said here. And so this is our opportunity. I don't want to keep the representative here for too much longer. I know she's very busy as well, but I listened to her speak before and she really does want to hear from you. And so this is an opportunity. You know, I don't think there's a question that would be inappropriate. Please come off mute. If you can show yourself, great. You can type it in the chat. Whatever works. I'll start off with a question if that's okay. As we're working, to give you a little context, Representative, we have a easement program called the Wetland Reserve Enhancement Easement, a Wetland Reserve Easement Program, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
This program is designed to take formerly converted agricultural land where the wetlands have been modified to either provide drainage or to alter the hydrography in the area, and it allows NRCS to purchase the development rights of this and turn it back into what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason this is one of our most appealing easements is because it allows NRCS to pay 100% of the cost. Now, we have another easement program where we can protect farmland, active farmland.
Mm-hmm.
However, that requires a partner to bring forward it as a proposed project and to provide a match.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we struggle here with in Hawaii is that a lot of our converted wetlands are still in active agriculture. Let's think of our more traditional farming operations that maybe farm lo'i or the fish ponds. They're still active, and furthermore, we don't know what they looked like pre-contact. However, when we try to submit those to get 100% of the cost covered by NRCS, it runs afoul of the program rules in the Farm Bill that says that it must have been a prior converted, or it must have been, or it can no longer be active agriculture. So as you're working on the Farm Bill, I think that might be something for Hawaii to look into to see if there's any way that we can get maybe exceptions for indigenous systems that are modified to allow the stream to flood our lo'i tau crops and what have you, but still be active agriculture. And it's something that is a little bit of a bottleneck for us in that program. And so I was just curious, what kind of opportunities are available to look at the different programs that are available in the Farm Bill and to be able to provide comment and feedback on that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for that. And, you know, as you were talking, it kind of made me think of even the state's legacy land program. You know, oftentimes at the state level, we use that to preserve large tracts of land, although it did require, you know, state putting the money in, sometimes having a partner also usually to raise the other portion, which is not always the easiest thing to do. We would like to, I think, be able to access the Wetland Reserve Program where it's 100% paid for by NRCS. I feel like, you know, I know others must have looked at this before, but I do feel like given just the historical context of the land, indigenous practices and land management and whatnot, there should be a way that we might be able to provide for some kind of exemption in many cases. I mean, I look at Kawainui, you know, marsh and the Hamakua wetlands area there that was in my prior state Senate district, and the conservation efforts that we did there, the restoration efforts we did there. You know, we got federal support for it, whatnot, but a lot of it was returning it back to what it was, which was in many cases active lo'i patches, stream restorations, those types of things. And so I do feel like there is an opportunity to educate, perhaps at the federal level, as to what would be most appropriate, and I think also in line with the program itself. So let me, without speaking too much further in that, we'll take a look at that from our office standpoint to see how we may be able to draw down on that 100% match support as well, because that would be great. In terms of being able to comment, one of the things that we did do as part of our, kind of listening sessions and feedback was to ask folks to tell us of the 12 areas of the Farm Bill that's going to be up for consideration. What are your thoughts? Try to prioritize different areas. I do believe it's still on our website. If you go to tokuda.house.gov under the Farm Bill, there is an ability to provide some survey responses to us. This was actually recently relaunched. So many of you on this call may have participated prior to tell us your priorities and help us to put in recommendations for specific programs and areas to the Farm Bill when we first were going around asking for comment, when we were still on a different schedule where we thought we were going to complete the Farm Bill by this year. But given that we are now tracking another 12 months, we also did put out another survey. So if you can kind of fill that out, it's an opportunity to be able to provide comment in many ways to some of the different title areas. And we will be very happy to take that in. What I actually want to do, we're waiting for more people to participate in this most recent survey rounds, is I'd like to actually compare it to the previous results that we got when we first went out to the listening sessions and when people were completing it as we were preparing for 2023 Farm Bill negotiations. And so if you can, hopefully it's still there on that website. I do see it on the screen. But
I believe so. Right
yes.
here, right? Take the survey.
So you can click on there and you can, provide your feedback and comment, again, on the various programs of the Farm Bill. If any of you on here have particular interest in one or two titles or specific programs within the titles that you would want to talk to us about, please, let us know. Contact Mitch Heidenreich. He's out sick today, unfortunately, so he's not on this call, but he's my agricultural lead on all these and takes care of our committee work. So, please reach out to us and we would love to just sit down more and talk with you if that's the case. And since you can see the website on there, if you're curious as to where we went, you can click on an island and you can actually see the Farm Bill tour that we went on. This is not all inclusive of all the visits and things I've done, but it kind of tells you about some of the different talk story sessions that we had on each island. So can't wait to actually, do more of these and add more little dots to the map. But appreciate everyone who came out and to help put all these different things together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Representative. I want to see if there's any other questions. Please raise your hand if you'd like to ask any. We definitely set aside quite a bit of time for this, so I want to make sure we utilize it. These opportunities don't come around very often, so please don't be shy. Come online. I see we have a couple of partners on here. Dave Elliott, some other people. I might call some folks out. If anyone wants to ask the representative question, now's a great opportunity. Emma, thank you so much for raising your hand. If you could introduce yourself and go forward with your question.
Thank you. Aloha, I'm Emma Yu, and I work with the DLNR Division of Forestry and Wildlife, and we've worked together when you were in the House. I just wanted to put a plug in actually for the RCPP program. We have been really successful in getting funding in partnership with NRCS, and that has gone through the Farm Bill, and that those RCPP programs have then really been able to support a lot of our larger scale watershed partnership projects that work across landowner boundaries and have really large impacts on the upland forests, as well as doing, fire break prevention work and a lot of these other really key watershed protection projects. So I just wanted to say that we've been really successful at getting more funds for Hawaii for that project and that program, and anything you can do to make sure that our CPP is still really well funded and is supported is going to be really critical to us. We were just delighted. We learned that we got another $5 million grant this year from RCPP, and we're just it's been a great source of funding for us. That's been really meaningful for a lot of our watersheds. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And maybe if we could do this, just something to think about. I do come home every weekend, although a lot of times, like this coming weekend, I've got kid duty when I do come home for the most part. But what would be great is if I could actually come out and see some of the work firsthand in my district. I think that'd be really good. And I'll tell you why it's also important, so that I can also come back to DC and share that. In terms of why funding for these kinds of programs are important, why they should be increased, if anything, not decreased. And also at some point, the goal is to have GT Thompson. He has promised he was coming to Hawaii. So he's got a little bit more time before the Farm Bill, has to be closed this year. And so I'm just trying to think to myself, when I bring the chair of the Ag Committee, and I'd likely bring other members of the committee with me to Hawaii, what are some of the things that we want them to see in terms of the good work federal funds are doing for agriculture, for conservation in our states, and in particular in Hawaii. And so, Emma, if you can think of a few places that might be good for me to go and see, that we can also perhaps take some committee members at some point too as well. It's nothing like people seeing to understand the value of the money. If not, it sounds like dollars and cents, right, in projects. But really being able to see it, share it, convey that, bring them to it, I think is really great. So thank you, for that. And tell Dave I said hello if he's still over there making trouble.
Yeah, he's definitely still over here making trouble. And
very good.
Do you have a particular staffer I should contact to give site visit ideas to?
You can contact Mitch, who's my ag person. You
Okay.
can also reach out just to my district office.
Okay, I'll do that.
And they're on the right time zone at least, so that's always very helpful.
Okay.
And they can coordinate some kind of site visits. And I'll be home hopefully a lot more in the next few months. It's just been a rough few months for us here in DC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Emma. I can relay that RCPP is very well funded this year. And thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, it will continue to be very well funded for the foreseeable future. However, RCPP is a component of the Farm Bill, and I know Representative Tokuda is working on that right now. So it's nice to hear that it's high funded. I want to now turn it over to Dave Elliott, and Dave is also a RCPP grant recipient with Oahu RC&D. So Dave, the floor is yours to ask the representative a question or a comment.
Thank you, Nick. Aloha, Representative Tokuda. Really nice to see you again.
Yes.
It's great to be in the first session that kicked off your listening tour back at Denver Community College. And I don't think we've crossed paths dropping off our kids at King lately, but maybe next time. I just wanted to echo in part Emma's call for the importance of the RCPP funds. We've also had success in raising those, and they are really critical for local conservation, and especially for conservation on working agricultural lands, which needs to be an important point of emphasis because it can be a hard nut to crack to solve all of the red tape and really make that Farm Bill funding available and equitably accessible for producers here in Hawaii who, don't exactly grow a lot of soybean and corn, which is what a lot of the Farm Bill programming really aligns well with. So I wanted to just speak to the critical importance of the issue that Nick did put on the table of solving some of those wetland compliance issues. So important, not just for conservation wetland areas, but also for working wetlands that are so important for the perpetuating cultural practices and healthy local foods, taro among them, that are so important to the foodways of people here in Hawaii. We have an RCPP that supports indigenous agriculture, and we would love to, we'll reach out to your office as well with some ideas for site visits. If you do bring in delegations, so we can get out and understand the importance of those practices for wetland conservation, both for creating water bird habitat, but also for producing food and maybe help think about some of the bottlenecks, because the producers are still encountering some issues and actually being able to invest the funds appropriately because of some of the hangups around wetland. The other topic I'd like to speak to is the need for good funding for our great NRCS staff here. Solve so many issues in order to deploy services that are meaningful for the special needs of our state, which are so diverse. And I know one topic that's come up repeatedly is the need for an economist to help ensure that Farm Bill funding really meets the unique market conditions that farmers confront here in Hawaii. And also just all of the good field office staff that needs to be in place to overcome the eligibility hurdles that seem to be more challenging for producers here in Hawaii. So I wanted to speak to that, and just thank you for your presence and continued efforts on behalf of agriculture in Hawaii. And I will open up the floor for others to speak. Thank you.
No, thank you, Dave. Good to see you. I have been totally shirking my king parent drop-off duties, but I do it when I'm home if I'm able to. And so, but I'm very fortunate my husband does it. You know, I did want to speak to a couple of things that you mentioned. First of all, thank you for, you know, reminding me just about, you know, quite frankly, I do think it's an educational process when it comes to working wetlands, because again, we're very unique. We're specialty crops for the most part. We are indigenous and traditional crops, traditional to Hawaii. And so I'm always reminding folks that it's a specialty crop to you. It's a staple crop to me, right? This is part of who we are. And so there's a lot of education that has to go into, first of all, our unique understandings of the land and the water systems, growing techniques, climate, all of these things. Quite frankly, to me, we can be on the leading edge of how we grow and produce food and deal with climate challenges because of just the traditional knowledge that we have here in Hawaii. And so, you know, have put a lot of space, even in my amendments that I've requested and whatnot, to look, giving space, giving resources to those indigenous food systems, growing practices, all of these different things, recognizing our crops as our staple crops, no matter how specialty or, you know, different it is to anyone else. And so definitely space there. Another thing you pinged on that I was thinking about, we have been also pushing for traditional navigators. Just the understanding that there are a lot of resources and grants and funding out there. Technical assistance is very complicated and short on coming by. To me, we need to make sure that we again support, you know, our traditional, you know, our farmers, those that are, you know, working to preserve these crops and whatnot, access these kinds of monies and resources. So to have, you know, traditional navigators out there to support, connect all these things together is really important. So we have really pushed for these navigator positions as well. And I absolutely agree with you in terms of just, as I was mentioning during my opening talk, increasing the capacity for NRCS. You know, I remind folks that their territory is very large. It's not just the, you know, our main Hawaiian Islands, which is difficult enough, by the way, to fly and to get to and can be very expensive, but they have the broader Pacific area. And when you consider the cost of flights for any of our federal agencies, they just don't have budget, you know, and which is why I think it's actually important they fly out here and they understand that everything costs money. And if we're going to be doing our job well and right, as we should, then we have to make sure that they have the resources and the staff capacity to be able to do that kind of outreach. And what I really appreciate and love is that you know, the willingness to go above and beyond is so there. And now we need to just support them as they support all of us. And so absolutely agree. Thank you for giving them a shout out there. And, you know, this is really, really good stuff. And I think when Chair Thompson and others come over, I would love to get them in Alo'i. That would be the most classic picture, to have a dairy farmer from Pennsylvania in the middle of Alo'i. I you know, that's what I want. That'll be my goal. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We will absolutely be able to help you with that. Just keep us informed. And I know we have great partners here that participate in all of our programs, including providing us with very employees to assist us in getting the eligibility work done through cooperative agreements and what have you. So we're very lucky. I do want to see if there's any other questions. I know that we do have some other items we want to go through today, but I don't want to skirt anyone's opportunity. So Now's a last call for any questions for the representative. Again, you can also write them in the chat if you prefer. And just gonna do a going once, going twice, going three times thing. So going once. Oh, I think I see something in the chat. Let me just check it.
I think Dave was mentioning some of the staffs have
Yes.
liaison position for tribes, and I think a lot of part of what we're also doing is a lot of the language that's in in law right now references tribes, but as you know, Native Hawaiians are not tribes. And so again, perhaps if it's identified somewhere, even as a funded position, it would be us needing to make sure we're very specific that a Native Hawaiian liaison would be something that we would want to put in there too. So I like that Dave, we should have continued discussions on that. But it's a good reminder to us too that sometimes we think we might fall under the same enabling language or even appropriation as tribes, Native Americans, but as we know, in many cases, it has to be very specific to include Native Hawaiians. And so a lot of that is what we've been doing, even as it relates to food production as well. Some of you, I'm not sure, I can't see all the names on here, but even just from, looking at the Thrifty Food Plan and SNAP, we have been working very hard in our office to try to rectify what has been an tenable situation where the Thrifty Food Plan, what gives us the dollars that a family can have for SNAP. We are the only state in the country that went down in terms of the amount of money families would get through SNAP because the evaluation is based only on Honolulu in terms of average food price. You know that the cost of food is different on every single island, and it is absolutely unfair to compare it to Honolulu. It's in legislation, unfortunately, back from like 1982, Farm Bill or something like that. So we are trying to change it to actually be in alignment with Alaska. Alaska has rural and urban designations and averages for food prices. It's not perfect because I often have disagreement on the definition of rural. As it relates to our islands. And so we're going to work on that as well. But at least for now, trying to come up with better food prices and averages so that people have more dollars to be able to buy local food with and food with in general. So there's a lot that we're working on right now to, in many cases, try to bring us at least on par with what, tribes, Native Americans, Alaska Indians have access to. And so thank you for bringing that up, and we will, we'll keep talking with you, Dave, about that.
Excellent. Well, Representative, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today. We are going to continue our meeting. However, you're welcome to stay on if you'd like to learn a little bit more about what we're talking about. But I understand you have a busy schedule as well. So feel free to stay on as long as you'd like.
I have to jump off.
Drop off whenever you're ready, okay? That's okay.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to
this meeting is
see
recorded if you decide you want to watch it later.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
We will.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right. Well, thank you so much again. What an opportunity, folks. I've been in this job quite a while now, and I can't tell you the last time that we've had a representative willing to join the staff meeting. So thank you. We're going to move on with our agenda here. Kori Hisashima, Assistant Director for Partnerships, has some information to share about partnership opportunities with NRCS. So, I see a hand that was raised. Mary, do you have a question, or is it just? Oh, there we go. So, Kori, I think the floor is yours. If you want to take over the screen, go for it, or if you just have some material that you're presenting, just let me know.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks everyone for being here today. Really grateful for the opportunity to share some of the opportunities that we have here in PIA with all of you. So this is the first time I'm going to try from PowerPoint to present in Teams. Let's see if this works. And Nick, can you let me know if it comes up?
I stopped it, so go ahead and try sharing again. Oh, yep, it's coming up. Just give it a second.
That seems, is it really small for you?
Nope, I can see it. It's pretty big.
Perfect.
Yep, I think we can see it, so I think we can go for it.
All right. So today I'm going to talk about 3 different partnerships opportunities that we have here for you all. One is going to be the PIA Conservation Solutions through strategic partnership agreements. One is RCPP, or the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And then one is the National and State Conservation Innovation Grants. So we're going to start with the Conservation Solutions through strategic partnerships first. So these are basically agreements that NRCS has with other groups or partners or entities that want to do work that supports our mission and our vision and our strategic plan. So I'll just kind of quickly go over what our mission is, to deliver conservation solutions so agriculture producers can protect our natural resources and feed a growing world. And our vision is resilient islands with clean and abundant water, healthy soils, and thriving agricultural communities. In our strategic plan, there are a couple of points that we try to target with these agreements is to deliver highly effective conservation solutions for our customers, either through conservation planning and implementation or outreach or kind of a combination of both. And also to cultivate an empowered workforce, equipping our staff with the tools and providing customer service to all of our producers. We also try to accelerate our results through strategic partnerships. So trying to find that synergy with other partners who can help us to increase that conservation delivery capacity, outreaching to new customers, and then working on projects that amplify the outcomes for soil health and carbon farming and watershed function. There are 4 priorities that we're going to focus on for FY24. The top priority is going to be our Inflation Reduction Act and climate smart practices, and getting the word out about those specific initiatives, outreach to our new customers, as well as any historically underserved customers. There's a really big push from national headquarters to find new people to work with, and new customers, both partners and customers, actually. So we're looking for making that one of our top priorities. We still have a need for development of a long-range plan for the Lihui and the Saipan field offices, if anyone has interest in working on that. And then supporting innovative projects and programs that amplify outcomes for the economics of soil health, soil carbon amendments, and watershed functions. And that's kind of one that we've been carrying over for a few years now. All the work must be within the service areas here. So we have American Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, and the state of Hawaii. And there are many different people or entities that can apply for these. You can see them here. We work with probably the earliest ones was with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, but we've also worked very closely with other entities like the Oahu RCND, and really any other entity that's interested in any of the overlap that we may have in agriculture conservation work here in the Pacific Islands area. This year we'll have $1 million available. The least amount that we'd like to see for a proposal is $50,000, and then the most is $250,000. There isn't a specific match requirement, but it'll be evaluated relative to the project, and project lengths are usually 1 to 5 years. And this is for the competitive side. We also have ones that we work with entities specifically, like on the side, and we might have some other funding available for that as well. So I'm just going to continue on, and I'll take questions at the very end. And just talked a little bit about our RCPP program, or Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And it's really like partner driven, and finding a partner where we can leverage the conservation efforts. And it's usually a public-private partnership. And as Nick had mentioned, there's a lot of money coming this year through the Inflation Reduction Act and still through the Farm Bill. So that's available. And we expect that the announcement for that was probably going to come out either towards the end of this calendar year or early next year in January. And then also we have our conservation innovation grants, and these grants are just kind of to find new and innovative conservation approaches and technologies, and it could lead to us changing the way that we either do a practice or expand on ways that we do certain practices here in the Pacific Islands area. There's usually 3 types of projects or activities. It can be either a pilot project, it can be on-field demonstrations, or it can be on-farm research. And then the projects need to identify ways to incentivize conservation adoption and then lead to the implementation of that technology within the PIA. Some sample past projects that we've had, a lot of different ones that we've done with cover crops and trying to figure out which types of cover crops work best here in Hawaii in different conditions. If you all are familiar with the inoculated deep litter system or Korean natural farming piggery style, that originally started off as a CIG. And we've now adopted it as a practice here in PIA and use it pretty widely. And then I remember this one pretty vividly because I thought that it was really interesting, but there was a weed management specialist from the university, CTAR, that used paintball bullets and put herbicide in the bullets and shot it up in trees to kill certain types of tree pests or weeds. So those are kind of samples of some past projects that we've funded. The state priorities are going to continue to be soil health, soil quality, urban and small farms, climate smart ag and forestry, wildlife, and invasive species. And again, we want to tie back to our strategic plan and our mission and vision as we can. For FY24, we're going to have $500,000 available. Proposal amounts can go from $50,000 to $150,000, and agreements are usually 1 to 3 years. And this is just for the state one. We also have the opportunity, you can apply for national CIGs as well. And those actually have a higher threshold amount. And then I'm going to leave some time for some questions here, and just there's my contact information. If you want to chat about any project, proposal, or anything, please reach out and we can start talking stories.
Thank you very much, Kori. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Kori? If not, her contact information is right there. You can always send her a message individually. Great opportunity for partnerships. NRCS has a lot, and we would definitely rely on them to help us get work in and also help you meet the complementary goals of your projects. So please, if you think you might be interested in some of these, definitely reach out to Kori. All right, so thank you again. I'm going to take over the screen back from you, Kori.
Okay.
All right, hopefully you can see my screen again. Can I just get a thumbs up from someone that you can see it?
You're back up, Nick.
Thank you, Kori. Thank you, Zephyr.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next up we have Jason Hanson, the NRCS PIA agronomist, who's going to talk with us a little bit about becoming a technical service provider. So Jason, the floor is yours, and just tell me when to switch between slides.
All right, yeah, you got the slides, Nick? Okay. All right, thanks everybody. Pleasure speaking to you all today. Again, as Nick mentioned, my name is Jason Hanson. For those that don't know, state agronomist, also the TSP coordinator for the Pacific Islands. And just kind of a quick overview of the TSP program, Technical Service Providers. Some of you are probably familiar with it. It's maybe not our most well-known program, but I think it's one that shows definitely a lot of opportunity here across the island. So we'll get into it right away here. What is a TSP? And guys, feel free ask questions as we're going. Interrupt me. It's no problem at all. So what is a TSP? Basically, it's any individual conservation professionals from the private sector, could be nonprofit organizations, folks that work with them, or even public agencies. And basically, TSPs or technical service providers provide direct technical assistance to our producers and landowners, deliver the same conservation services that NRCS folks would provide, or even our district or our other partner planning staff. They assist with development of conservation plans, and they also assist producers, landowners in basically the implementation, the planning, and the certification of any of our practices or activities across lands that we work on. Next slide, please. TSP certification. So how do you get certified to become a technical service provider? Basically, to qualify for certification, an individual TSP you got to have the right technical training, yes, educational requirements, experience, or any combination thereof to perform the level of technical assistance for which certification is sought. So basically, if you have any of our conservation planning activities, which can be found in our field office technical guide, and there are links provided at the end of the slides here for you folks. Any activities listed within there are conservation standards, like for example, high tunnels or cover crops, or really nutrient management. Some of the maybe common ones that TSPs are looking at doing, soil testing, things like that. Basically, every activity that NRCS offers through the field office technical guide, technical service provider have the ability to get certified, again, with the right educational or work experience, prior experience. If you're showing that you're technically proficient with it, that you can implement, design, and plan these things and certify them on the ground, we can get that review done, make sure you meet the qualifications, and once you're certified as a TSP, you can do those activities, work with people to get them implemented across the islands. You got to meet all applicable licensing for similar qualifications established by state law. Could be different laws across territories. We would help you with that. But basically, the individual TSP would want to make sure that they're meeting all state laws for the areas they're working in. And then also you need to demonstrate basically either through, hard copy documentation, training, other experience, like I mentioned before, just kind of a general familiarity with NRCS specifications as set forth in applicable NRCS manuals for the planning and application of specific conservation practices, like I mentioned, activities, and other management systems for which the certification is desired. Not to be one other qualification is if you're putting in for multiple states, which you could do national. You can select states. You could do more than one at any given time. Basically, you just have to meet the certification in all states to become certified at the time of application. If you're not meeting in Colorado, but you're meeting here, we wouldn't be able to move forward. You basically would have to be eligible and be able to be certified in all that you applied for at that time. The registration process for becoming an NRCS TSP, basically step one, create your USDA verified login.gov account. We can always assist you with that. Step two is the verification of your identity. Basically, who are you, and how do we prove you are who you are? There's a typo there, sorry about that. Log into step three, the NRCS registry website. Again, links provided at the end. And then step four, basically submit your application for review. Myself as the TSP coordinator for the Pacific Islands, that would basically be funneled right to me. I would contact the TSP applicant. We would go through the application, review the educational work experience, and then go from there to decide, okay, what kind of documentation do we need to see? Have you already provided enough? Any assistance through the process, whether it's getting an Angler account, the login.gov account, any paperwork that's necessary. There's kind of a few different steps in there that weren't directly described in the slides, but we can walk you through that. And then also we're working with our public affairs staff right now. Just today, got them an email for a fact sheet so we can get that out to you folks in a timely manner here. I think we'll be able to get that out pretty quick. And when we do, Nick, I guess I'd ask you if we can just plug that right into the stack here. And then, of course, our field office as well, so we can get that out to the public for anybody that might be interested. Next slide,
Okay.
please. Quality assurance. So basically all services provided by TSPs, that's the conservation standards, the activities, practices, they must meet NRCS standards and specifications per the activity. We would go through that again. So you'd have to show a work proficiency ahead of time for certification. You'd have to show your work experience, the educational requirements to meet the certification standard for becoming a TSP for that specific activity. But then also on the backside of it, once you've been certified, anything you're doing on the ground, we have to meet NRCS standards and specs. If we're doing that, then and only then can we provide reimbursement or payment, so long as we're meeting those standards and specs on the ground. NRCS will also be reviewing all documentation. That includes like planning materials, maps, soil testing, really anything that it came with the individual activities to ensure quality assurance that we're meeting standards and specs with the appropriate activity or practice. And then the reimbursement down below, TSPs are hired by a producer or landowner, will be reimbursed by the producer landowner from funds obtained through NRCS conservation programs. It could be EQIP, AMA, CSP, RCPP, different programs there. It's not going to exceed any levels of payment for each conservation practice activity, and that'll be determined by NRCS. And that should be updated annually at minimum. Those rates are available in the most recent state payment schedules. I did look online today, and again, on the next slide, we can go to Nick, just some useful links for everybody, anybody that's considering becoming a technical service provider. TSP, there's YouTube training videos there. There's the AgLearn website. That would be our actual course materials. There's introductory TSP courses. There are also course requirements for individual activities or practices that you might need to take to make sure that you're checking the box, if you will, for the right requirements for the individual activities. The main TSP website there, the registry site, where you're actually entering your application into. Find a TSP in case you're looking for somebody that's already certified for an individual activity. The payment schedules, which I was getting at, that would be second from the bottom there. I just clicked on there today. They're not technically updated yet for 2024, but that should be pending. The links are actually dead right now, so that tells me that they're working on it. And then the FOTG, the Field Office Tech Guide, is the last one there. And within that Field Office Tech Guide, you can find access the information to all of our current active NRCS conservation practices and activities listed that basically TSPs would be eligible to be certified for. So that's really it. I know the TSP program is brought up often. There's it seems like pretty regularly, working with folks that have varying degrees of interest. Some folks go forward with it. A lot of people seem to have an interest in it. They find out that it can be challenging sometimes to get certified. Not so much difficulty in actually going through it, but just kind of the time. It's a lot of back and forth oftentimes, to be pretty frank with you folks. But it is workable. There's a lot of opportunity from what I see, especially from my agronomist role. I think anything to do with Kori mentioned earlier, like the piggeries, the nutrient management side of things, cover cropping, any of our cropland practices, agroforestry practices, really across the board. Pest management would not be another big one. Any of those, there really seems to be a lot of opportunity for TSPs. So I guess if you or anybody else is interested in, please contact me. I put my email on the back slide, I believe. If not, I can put that in the chat here. You guys can contact me directly, and we can help you get started on that basically at any time. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Jenny Lynn, I got your message. I'll be sending out the slides today. So you'll have access to all the
Great.
slides as soon as we're done with the presentation here.
Yep.
I just don't like to set it out right away because sometimes we run a little afoul of time, as we are today. So I might abbreviate the end part of the agenda where I talk. So you'll get these slides here very shortly. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jason.
everybody.
Appreciate your time. All right, next up, we're going to turn it over to Zephyr, who will give us an update on the easement subcommittees and the work that they've been doing. So Zephyr, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Yep. This is Zephyr Usinger. I'm the ASAP CSP program manager. So looking at our easement subcommittee that started back in July, we currently have 11 different partners that are represented in this. So as you can see on this list, multiple NGOs, federal, state agencies, And we also have 7 additional NRCS field office employees that have also volunteered to assist. So in addition to their normal duties, they're taking on more. So some of our goals that we have. So looking at our ranking criteria and some of our priorities for this upcoming fiscal year. So ASAP ALE, that's our agricultural land easements, which is the primary easement program that we currently use in the PIA. And so looking at those ranking questions, getting suggestions, seeing what we can do to make those applicable for the type of agriculture that we have in Hawaii. The next one is, I'll go into a little more detail, is looking at our priorities as PIA for the type of land and type of agricultural operations that we are prioritizing, and that specifically helps to create an additional it helps to include more farms that would otherwise not be eligible for this program. So I'll go a little bit more into that later. And then the third one goal is to help with outreach efforts and to help to gauge interest and to reach out to potential land trusts or other entities who would be able to hold and manage some of these ag easements, and then how coming up with plans for how to engage more farms, landowners, and people that would be interested in applying for these. So next slide. This is a broad overview of the NRCS easement opportunities. As Nick had mentioned earlier, there's the wetland reserve easements, which are the U.S. held, and those are ones that are 100% they're NRCS funded, but can be challenging for us to fit within that framework. It's more popular on the mainland because it fits their paradigm there, what they have going on. So what we typically work with is agricultural land easements. And then the other opportunity, which as Kori had mentioned with RCPP, there is the possibility of having easements within those RCPP proposals that partners can bring forward. So that is another area that we would like to explore more, and we'll have an additional NRCS position coming up in the new calendar year that'll help too with bringing that forward. So please reach out if you fall within that. And then, so looking at ASAP, looking at ALE, so agricultural land easement, they have to meet, just like our other programs, farms have to meet specific eligibility. And so for an agricultural land easements, it needs to be one of 3 things. And one of them is to have at least 50% prime, unique, or other productive soils. The second one is to be protecting grazing, which also goes a bit, so it's grazing and then also grazing in terms of restoring conservation land. So then the third one is protecting land that will further a state or local policy and is consistent with the purpose of ASAP. So so that 50% prime productive soils can exclude a lot of our indigenous agricultural areas. Low-E, flooded taro, it's not necessarily prime. It doesn't fit within the definition of prime land occasionally, so, in the traditional sense. And so trying to find another category that we can use is one of the goals of this, so that we can be more inclusive of the farming operations that we have here in Hawaii and PIA. So next slide. And so here's an example of, so the purpose is protect agricultural viability, related conservation values, limits non-agricultural uses of the land, so it's preventing development primarily, but also helping to promote the conservation values of that agricultural land. And so here is an example of state policy, which says and the key word is perpetuate. So perpetuate, promote, and increase use of traditional farming systems. And so this is one piece of state statute that we found. We're also open if anyone on the call knows of other resources, please share those. Go to the next slide. And so that's what that is inviting. And so next. Yeah, so that's it. That's so we're developing that a type of letter that we can submit that will then show that this is a priority for the state based off of state and local policy, so that we can increase that eligibility of those indigenous agricultural operations so that they can also be able to receive these easements. So if you have any questions or want to join the easement committee, please send me an email. We meet quarterly. Our last meeting was in October and our next one will be in January. So yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Zephyr. Appreciate your time and appreciate all your hard work on it. Easements is a very exciting program and one that we want to build up here a little bit more. So the opportunities there are great. And I'm proud to say that I'm, fingers crossed, I don't know yet. There's lots of things that can change with easements, but this might be one of our better funding years for easements. We actually have quite a bit of interest thanks to some of our amazing partners who are on the call with us right now. So thank you. Let's keep working together, and please bring your feedback via the subcommittee so that we can make sure that our recommendations and advice get translated into policy that we can utilize here in the state. So I know I'm over time, so we're gonna go to Kristen here, and then we'll be wrapping it up a little bit quicker than I was planned, because we can talk about some of the other stuff that I want to do at our next meeting, but it's more important that we get through our partners. So Kristen, thanks for waiting till the end, and you're up.
Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon. I did one quick 2-minute update for you all on some of the FSA programs that we got going on right now. We are in the middle of the 2023 livestock forage program sign up. All of the Hawaii counties are eligible, so all islands in Hawaii are eligible. Sign up deadline is January 30th, 2024. We are also in the midst of doing our 2024 NAP, or Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, or our crop insurance program. The deadline to sign up for that is 12/31/23. And then our third program that we kind of got going, somewhat new, is the 2022 Emergency Relief Program. That program there, the sign up began earlier in November, and there's no deadline as of yet. It is covering revenue loss for eligible producers, and we're talking about revenue loss due to eligible disasters in 2022. So that's a new program we just got going. I think some of our offices have been getting some inquiries about that, but we encourage everybody to just contact us if they have questions about it. And then I put a little note in there for Maui only. We have the Emergency Conservation Program, or ECP, ongoing sign up. 12/11 is the deadline, and then the EFRP sign up, or the Emergency Forest Restoration Program sign up. The deadline is January 25th. So those two signups are for the Upcountry and Lahaina fires and high winds back in August. And those two programs are used to restore farmland to pre-disaster conditions. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or contact your local FSA service center. Thanks, Nick, for inviting us and allowing us time to do a quick update. Just wanted to say happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe and enjoy. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it, and appreciate all the extra programs that you offer, and appreciate you being such a great sister agency to NRCS. For those of you that don't know on this call, FSA and NRCS have to work very intricately and closely together, and we're lucky to have good leadership in both departments to be able to facilitate that connection. So, because we are a little short on time, I am going to amend my presentation a little bit, because a lot of the items that I was going to bring up are an overview of what we accomplished in 23. And in talking with our public affairs, they gave me a lot of data, but the final report is just about to be published. So it might be something that we can share at the next meeting. So with that, I might abbreviate that and take that out of today's agenda and just jump over to some brief information about funding in FY24. So just jump to my new slide here, because I jumped around a little bit there. So just a little bit of information about our fiscal year 24 allocations. We have got, and this is a lot of the NRCS folks on the call know this, but I bet you some of our partners may not know just how much funding NRCS PIA got this year. So you can see here all of our different programs that we offer throughout the states and territories. And you can see, look under CSP. You can see CSP and then CSP IRA. So we got almost as much in CSP IRA as we got in CSP General. And then look right below that, EQIP IRA versus EQIP General. We have more money in EQIP IRA than we have in EQIP General. Now, that's great for a funding year, but it does bring it some unique challenges in terms of how do we spend this, because IRA does have its own limitations. It has to be targeted to climate smart agriculture and forestry practices. And so as a result, we are pushing really hard to try and spend that money, allocate and spend in contracts that money first. And so we definitely need our partners' assistance in getting the word out about this opportunity, because we don't want to have to return this. I don't want another state to be able to utilize this. I want this to be able to be implemented for good projects in Hawaii and in the Pacific Island territories. So grand total across all the programs, so just about 28 million. That is a gigantic increase in funding compared to previous years. And so the amount we're being tasked to do more and more with the same amount of funding. And so as a result, we definitely need partners to help us get the word out about the availability of our programs. A little bit of blurb about the IRA. As I said, that is what we're prioritizing this year to try and get that funding allocated and out the door quickly. These are the different pools that we will have for IRA. They will be statewide pools this year. We are open to the possibility of making individual office IRA fund pools. However, because this is our first full year of implementation, we decided to go the route of making them statewide. But given how much funding is available in each of the pools, as you can see, I think the chance is pretty good we'll be able to fund most projects. And if we can't fund it in IRA, no worries. We still have about 8 million left in our general to be able to fund things. And just to reiterate, IRA practices must follow this climate smart agriculture and forestry mitigation activity list. So if you haven't taken a look at this practice list yet, I highly recommend you do so. It talks about all the different practices that have been highlighted as having a positive effect on climate change mitigation, as well as the categories it's under. In order to qualify for an IRA contract, the application must be doing at least one of these things. Anything else that they are doing must be tied to one of these things. And so our planners, I know that are working hard on trying to help farmers understand this and help them identify the primary practices that they're doing, along with any supporting practices that are needed to get it done. A good example of this is prescribed grazing. Prescribed grazing really only works if you can do cross fencing and then provide watering to the newly subdivided fields. So that's prescribed grazing as your core practice, and then likely watering facilities, fencing as supporting practices. Watering facility and fencing are not on their own climate smart mitigation practices, but when tied to something like prescribed grazing, they are allowable underneath the Inflation Reduction Act. Just an interesting thing to explain to some of our partners so that they understand why we're bringing forward ideas and saying to do specific things, is because we want to try and get projects funded under here to definitely utilize that funding for the purposes of what it's intended. Just a little brief blurb about some of our preliminary EQIP allocations. Now, I want to stress that these are preliminary only, okay? Actual funding depends entirely on the interest from the different offices. We have a smaller amount of general funding compared to previous years. Last year's we had about 12 million in equip general. And so as a result, we could spread that around a little bit more. As you saw here in this slide, that amount general has dropped to about 8 million. And that's because we got we got almost double what we got last year in IRA. But as a result, our amounts of general funding did come back a little bit. And so that just means that we have a little bit less to play with. And so there is some funding in our general categories that are earmarked specific for initiatives in certain offices. And so I'm not talking about those right now. But because we have a little bit in equip general allocations, we want to prioritize all of our projects into IRA if possible. There's definitely going to be projects that don't fit in IRA. It's going to happen. And so that's where we want to make sure that we can fund them and pick them up in our general allocation. But if we use our general allocation first, then we run the risk of not being able to fund as many projects as we'd like. So just to give you a brief overview, and this information, the field offices have seen this information, but maybe some of our partners haven't, and we'll continue to present this as these meetings go on. But we have certain statewide initiatives that are in green that we're required to provide funding for, per the Farm Bill rules and per the allocation guidance. And then we have our local pools. And so we made our local pools pretty much even this year. Some offices have a little bit smaller in their local ones, and that's just due to the fact that they may work on smaller scale farms. But remember, these are individual office funds in blue. So that doesn't preclude anyone from participating in any of the statewide fund pools or the IRA statewide fund pools. So just please remember that when you're looking at this, it's not set in stone. These are just targets. And quite often, if a certain office isn't able to use their allocation, there's usually another office that can, that we end up putting forward, that we end up moving the money over to them. So we are excited. We have some new initiatives this year. You can see down there at the bottom, there'll be 2 new initiatives in Maui, one to help Maui with fire recovery, and another one to help with feral ungulate issues. So we're excited about those 2 funding categories, opportunities that are there. Just a quick plug on the RCPP. I'm proud to say that in the last notice of funding opportunity for fiscal year 23, PIA got 2 of our 3 projects that were selected for funding. That's great. And my goal is at the next meeting that we have to hopefully have one or maybe both of these partners present just a little bit on their project, so that you as our partners and our NRCS employees can learn a little bit about what these projects are going to be doing. They're very much in their infancy. They just got announced, I think, a month ago. And so we're going to be working on developing the framework for how to implement these, and ideally with the goal of getting implementation done within the next 3 years. And so one was with Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Fish and Wildlife. It's their second one. Very happy for them. They're moving along very nicely on their first one. So it was very nice to be able to see them have the capacity to take on a new one. And another one is a brand new one out of the Big Island with Changemakers Community Economic Development Corporation, who's going to be working with farmers on helping them identify sources of and proper application methods of soil carbon amendments and biochar. So we're very excited to see these programs come forward, and look forward to getting you more information about them in the future. 2 important deadlines that are coming up for NRCS here. First and foremost, the one that's important to all of our partners is going to be the all programs second sign-up deadline. So that's March 8th. It's very important. If we have applications, we have a huge funding year this year, and so we want as many applications as we can get. Submitting an application does not beholden anyone to funding, nor does it guarantee anyone for funding. It merely puts your foot in the door and gets you your place in line so that you can be considered. I highly recommend that anyone who is interested in submitting an application do so before March 8th. We don't want to have to open up another sign up because it's a lot of administrative work. So let's use this opportunity to get all of our applications in. Now, this is for all of our programs, everything from easements to EQIP to CSP to AMA to RCPP, all one sign up. And we have until March 8th to get those applications in. One of the deadlines that our field offices is working diligently on are our assessment, ranking, and cost estimates from our round 1. Our round one sign up ended on November 3rd. And we got quite a few signups in there. So I'm very glad to see how many applications we got in round one. And so field offices are working on getting those eligibility documents ready, as well as completing the assessments and cost estimates. The rankings will be available in December for offices to be able to push forward with ranking. We're just getting comments and feedback from our different departments on them before we release them. All right, so with that, I've gone over my time today by almost half an hour. So I want to just let folks know this will be our next meeting. We're going to meet on February 13th, 1 p.m. Hawaii time, 12 p.m. Samoa Standard Time, and on the 14th at 9 a.m. Guam and Saipan time. So just please, if you are on this call and you think there are more people from your agency that need to be here to listen to what we have to say, please forward them the calendar invite. Feel free to do that. And the same goes for our NRCS staff on this call. Please, if there are district personnel, district managers, other nonprofits that you're working with that you believe need to be on this call to learn a little bit more about NRCS and the important work that we do, don't be shy. Please forward that information to them. That calendar invite that I send for these is public and available for you to forward. So don't be shy, send it on their way. Just something to think about. We were talking about potentially having an in-person meeting for one of the stacks on one of these days. So we have our February 13th meeting coming up. JB unfortunately isn't going to be, he'll be present for the meeting, but he won't be in Hawaii at that time. And so we were hoping to look at these two dates as a potential opportunity for an in-person meeting. And so that'll be something that I'll be sending out to the staff to kind of get their feedback on. Obviously, for those who can't attend, we'd still make it virtual as well. We have the capacity to do that, so we would go forward. You can also click on our link down there to see the link to all of our planned meetings throughout the year. We have 4 planned. This was our first of the fiscal year, and we're excited to be able to host more of these. So now I'm going to turn it over for public comment period, just to see if anyone has any questions or if there's any hands raised. I know I've gone over my time here, so I'm going to keep it brief, but if anyone does, please feel free to raise your hand. All right. With that being said, I'm then going to conclude this meeting of the State Technical Advisory Committee for the month of December. We will see folks again in February. As always, please continue the good conservation work you do. I know it's hard work, and I know that it's not always the most thankless job that we have, but if it wasn't for people who care about what we're doing, we wouldn't get what we need done. So thank you again, and I will let folks go. I appreciate your time.